of this series. It's $40. You can support Sage as well as Blue Sky. It's signed. You're getting a good deal. Okay. We also wanted to promote another one of Sage's earlier series, American Scene, and this is going to be our book level membership book. So it'll be available this fall. So if you're thinking about joining as a member, join at the book level, and you'll get this as soon as it comes out. So.
My goodness, it's only $75, and look at all it does for Blue.
Yes. And we have a copy at the front if you want to take a look. It's really nice. So. All right. So I'll turn the stage over to you now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sage.
Thank you all for coming out on a beautiful evening, for being able to come outside on a beautiful evening. And let me start by calling your attention to these vitrines here, which have original pictures of my mother as a fashion model back in the late 40s. And this is sort of how this project started, because as a child, I was obsessed with looking at, and she had these albums that she kept in the drawer in the living room, and I would pull them out and look at my mother seemingly years ago, at that point maybe only 12 years before. And so I put these here, and also please read some of the text, because they really are period pieces, and they do show actually how far women have come. Even though I feel like maybe we're regressing, we're going back a little bit these days, nonetheless, things have changed. Her modeling career actually happened by chance. Richard Avedon photographed her when she was 16 with some other debutantes. And he liked the pictures of her and told her that he'd be interested in taking more of her if she was ever interested. So in a way, he discovered her. And she was interested in acting. And she saw modeling as a possible stepping stone to acting. I photographed her over the years, but never really thought about doing a whole project about her. I took that black and white that's in the hallway in 1980 when she was 52 and I was 26. And I love that picture, but I think I was a little too close to my childhood to want to proceed with it at that point. And then in 1994, I took a picture of her again in the hallway of Mom applying makeup. And again, I loved it, but I didn't sort of do more of it at the time. And then in 2000, I was trying to do a documentary project about adults with their aging parents, basically all my friends. And the pictures were just awful. They were dull, they were depressing. And I thought, well, I'm going to see my mother, so I'll try to take some pictures of me with my mother. I'm always telling my students, photograph yourself, photograph your family, and I've never done self-portraits. Let me try this. So I took, first weekend, I took this picture, and I took this picture. And when I got back home and printed them, I liked them so much more than what I had done of other people. I thought, oh, I should just do my mother. She has the star quality, which is undeniable, and my sister and I can be the foils. We can be the secondary characters in this series, which we're sort of the contrast, showing how different she is than most people. Most of these are recreations of memories from childhood or snapshots from childhood. And in them, the camera's on a tripod and with a self-timer. And so we had to talk beforehand about what we were going to do, and I would set the camera, and this was film, not digital, and I would run into the picture. And so this was something there was always the hand reaching when we were children to, we used to have these little curls that she would tape to her cheeks and stuff. So the hand was always coming over, so I said, do that thing with the hand. And she said, oh, okay, sweetie, I'll look at the camera. So that was how we did those. And this one, my mother had these, in her house, she likes to have these terry cloth bathrobes, which hang in the guest quarters. You always feel a little weird putting them on because you're never sure they've been washed. Anyway, I thought, okay, I'm going to put on one of these robes. So, here I am at 14 looking identical. I mean, my hairstyle, nothing has changed. Unsettling. Anyway, for a while I tried to catch my mother off guard and get her at odd moments where she wasn't in control, and it never worked. I had to give it up, because the truth was it was always better when I allowed her to compose herself. And the pictures were more magnificent when that happened. And if I caught her off guard, it just wasn't interesting. And so more and more I've learned that that's what I needed to do. Now, let's see, at some point I'm going to let you guys ask whatever questions you have, but there are a couple of other things that I wanted to say. One of the things was that my mother had moved into her mother's house, so this was not the house I grew up in. And one of the things that I loved when I first started taking these is that the decor is this sort of antiquated decor. It's sort of between my grandmother's heyday of the 20s and 30s and my mother's heyday of the 50s and 60s. They both love bright colors, and I just thought, who has these anymore? But it provides this great stage set for the photographs. We'll talk about a couple of other pictures. So my mother, she had this indoor pool where she and her friends would exercise and do their swimming in the nude, and everyone had a different time slot. So this really was her doing her thing with the wacky noodle. Let's see, what else? Well, this was done with a flash because I had to stop the action, but it was my mother sort of taught us to apply makeup when we were 12, 13, and then of course the 60s came and we were like, we're not going to do that. So we kind of rejected all that. So for the first time in a long time, I'm allowing them to make me up, so they thought this was great. And shopping was another thing I remembered. We used to all go to, Best and Company or Saks Fifth Avenue and crowd into one little dressing room and try on clothes together. At first I was trying to hide the tripod, but more and more I decided to let the tripod in this picture and the one on the other wall of the bathtub, let it be a character in the picture, and just let that be seen. This one, bleaching ritual, at a certain point, she'd look at us and she'd go, sweetie, it's time. And the dark hair was coming back, we needed to bleach again. So that's a recreation of, the kitchen timer would go on, we'd be in all the towels together, and we'd have the wet face cloths ready to wash it off. So, it was fun to recreate these, and we would giggle a lot, and it was actually difficult sometimes to, no, it's time, we have to be serious in these pictures, let's see, what else? Oh, the bathing suit one. So, this was a recreation of the fact that my mother wanted us to wear bathing caps. She insisted these so that our hair wouldn't, we'd still have the curls and everything. So that was a recreation of that. And, well, I think I can open this up to, one other thing I wanted to say in terms of the book. At a certain point, what I realized as I did these pictures, that the interesting thing would be to try to get permission from all these photographers' estates to show some of the fashion pictures in the prologue to the book. And also to do some of her early glamorous snapshots, these black and white snapshots from the 40s and 50s. And the idea of having a book that was about 3 different kinds of picture making, snapshots, fashion, and art photography, whatever the hell that is, all of the same person could be an interesting thing. And so that was really the goal. And in the book, initially, the publisher and I, we wanted to use different paper for the fashion pictures, but then we had to get the exact right number of signatures to do that. So instead, I scanned some paper from one of my mother's albums, and we sent these huge digital files of just the paper itself. And so that's what that different color is. It's actually a scan of one of my mother's albums. But why don't, I would love just to answer any questions that come up. Or listen to comments or reactions.
What was the span of time?
Span of time is about 20 years, from the first one in '94 to the last one in 2014. Yeah.
I didn't have a question, but I just wanted to say I had a really strong reaction to bleaching ritual, just because that's a moment I recognize out of my own childhood too, and I had a sister, and it made me smile just to look at it, just because it brought back memories for myself, and
Yeah.
so I just wanted to say.
Okay, thanks. Other questions or just comments?
I wondered why she gave up modeling. Was it when she had children?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think I think what she told me is she had an opportunity to go to Europe with a chaperone, and so she went, and of course then fell in love. The chaperone didn't do her job very well, and yeah, she ended up having us, and so much for the acting career. And so she actually did have a screen test at one point, and the actor who shall remain nameless, who she had the screen test with, apparently it was all just making out with him. She didn't get to say anything. And she was so uptight, she said that was it. There was no possible. So, which again, that sounds like how things used to be, or maybe still are, right? So, yeah.
Your mom obviously projects glamour. How was she in the unglamorous parts of being a mom to two daughters?
She was good in the sense that she was very sane, and she was very clear. There were boundaries. There were things we couldn't do. There was a sense of right and wrong, and there was also a sense of having fun. She and her mother liked to have a good time, liked to give other people a good time, and so the general atmosphere was, she loved us and she wanted us to be happy. She wasn't good at unconditional love, in the sense of she wanted us to look and act a certain way as women. But I think that was very typical for her generation. I mean, I've talked to a lot of my friends about this, and it's really very, everyone seems to have a similar experience, and people here are nodding, and so, I think I became the observer. My father was also very charming and very, he was a bit of a performer too. And so I think that was that was what the position that was available to me. And also one that I felt genuinely comfortable in. If that answers your question. Yeah.
I'm interested in what you said about the body of work that didn't work with your friends and their parents that were aging. And I know your other work has been things you've been involved in, you've had kind of long-term relationships with. And so I'm interested if you could speak a little bit about doing work that has deep meaning and the kind of vitality that comes out of that versus other work that doesn't quite get that magic.
Yeah, I mean, I think all photographers have failed projects. And through doing those, they learn what works and what doesn't work. And, I keep trying to say this when I've had students, to encourage them and say, not everything works, but that doesn't mean that you don't learn from it. And that it doesn't lead to something that does work. I think, one of the things that's interesting about my mother is that the work is about mother-daughter relationships, and it's about aging, but it's not depressing, because partly because she doesn't really look old. I mean, she's old, but she doesn't look old. And I think that some of the other pictures, people in nursing homes, and it was depressing, and it was also work that had been done by other people. And this, I realized, my mother, it's strange because, at a certain point, in the book, and in these pictures, we look older than she does. She's had 3 facelifts. There's a, picture in the facelift picture in here, which amazingly she allowed me to take. Her, so this is before, during, and after. This is her third facelift when she's 74. And even in this one, a week after the facelift, she looks beautiful. I don't know why, maybe because she's puffy, she looks even younger. But it's strange.
This is that one?
This is a week after the facelift.
And how long is that?
That's 2 months after.
So it's fabulous.
Yeah, she's advertised.
This is before?
That's before, so you can see she's gotten rid of these neck muscles and these neck wrinkles, and she's also had a tuck right here in the chin.
And how old is she here?
Here she's 74.
I wouldn't mind looking as good as that one.
I know. She's advertising. And here, this last picture, she's 87. So, yeah, she's 87.
Wow.
So, she's doing something right. And more and more.
It's not all facelifts though, right? I mean,
It's
your
not all
mom has
facelifts.
sometimes-
She's awesome.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me about this whole series also is just that your mom is one of those people who not only, had got some kind of, I don't know, youth elixir or something, but I mean, she had the benefits of class, obviously, and I assume some money and some stuff like that.
Yeah.
But also, her looks happen to jive with what the culture appreciates at this point in our history. And that's one of the things that's so interesting to me is we talk about timeless beauty, and stuff like that, but of course it is, I think, to some extent also culturally determined. I mean, you want to think, she would be beautiful in any era, in any,
But it's not
in
true.
any place.
In the
But I'm not
60s,
sure it
she was.
is. Yeah. And that interests me a lot, that she somehow exists in this sort of sweet spot of everything sort of working at once. And it's fascinating to see you and your sister, who are sort of like normal people like the rest of us.
Exactly.
And to realize like how different that is for the people who exist in that funny nexus of
Right, exactly.
privilege and genetics and cultural, norms.
That's exactly right, yeah.
Well, and just to follow up on that, on the other side of that is when I don't know your family history, that she just takes over the picture. She insists that she be the one that is watched, whether or not she's the subject or not.
Right,
and in
exactly.
each and every one of them, the self-consciousness of being so aware of herself that she becomes the center of every picture. And just actually, in your own family, was she that conscious of how she looked or how she appeared most of the time?
Yes. Yeah, I would say yes. As was, and her mother was. I mean, here's they are, my grandmother and mother, and forced to set them up back to back as if they're a mirror image of each other. Which, is sort of a creepy thing if you think about it. I mean, who wants to be a mirror image of their mother? But my mother sort of did want to.
So she looked at her best
Yes.
in these situations, but in these sort of taking pictures of her situations.
But no, I mean, and this is, again, I think fairly typical of her generation, she always said, I don't leave my bedroom without putting my face on and without getting dressed for the day. And so that's why some people, there's that picture of her gardening on the other wall.
Yeah, right.
And people say, she wasn't really dressed like that. Yes, she was. She had her little gloves on, but she had makeup on and jewelry. She was dressed for the day and just happened to be gardening. I mean, this is how she still does things. So, yeah.
I just wonder, I came in Laine, where did you grow up?
This is I grew up in Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. And then this house that my mother lived in, it was in a sort of suburban part of Washington, D.C. So, yeah. Other questions? I know, wait, you guys had some questions for me. Where's Emily? What did you want to know at lunch? You guys were
Well, this
asking.
was more, Lisa had this question, but I'll go ahead and ask it, because I also want, I think you should tell everyone. But what is your mother's relationship to your project, and how does she feel about being a part of this?
She, she seemed to really enjoy it, and then at a certain point, she sort of said, "I'm getting too old for this. I don't feel like I look as well." And so that was clear. We reached the end, but she enjoyed it. I would send her pictures, and then I would notice which ones she put in her album. And if she didn't like something, she'd just cut it out. So she would have some of these, but some of them would be a little bit edited, like she didn't like part of her arm or her stomach.
Wow, she just sort of.
Yeah. So, I was just sending her, small pictures, but, and then I did, with great trepidation, show her the final edit, beforehand, and just say, are you okay with this? Because I had always told both my mother and sister, this is going to be a book, so don't, my sister kept saying, I don't care, I have a clothing optional household, you can photograph me anyway, and I'm like, are you sure? She only asked me to pick out one picture, and fortunately it was a picture I didn't particularly care about. It was an old black and white from the 70s. I just didn't like how she looked in it. And there are ones she doesn't, then suddenly the book came out, it actually came out, and she was like, oh my God, I'm naked in the pool, what are my friends Joan and Stephanie going to think? So I actually had to amend a few copies of the book. I had to take a razor, and I cut out that picture. There was an acupuncture picture. Let's see, where's the book? There were a few pictures. There was another nude of her and my sister in here that I took out. And there was, let's see, an acupuncture picture that she didn't like. Again, she let me take it. She didn't say take it out, but she didn't want some of her friends seeing this. She thought they would think it was immodest of her.
So you customized.
I customized the books. Yeah. I said, no problem at all. I'll take it right out.
It's really funny because there's an ongoing problem in libraries of photography books where people so it's like you should take the ones you raised out from her copies, take them to the library and say, if you lose nudes in some of your other books, you go.
How much did she have a part in sort of setting up things? Did you sometimes say hey, I want to work in the closet, and then she'd say, oh, it'd be much better. Did she have a real sense of
to her credit, she didn't. She sort of let me go do things. My sister was more like, no, we should do singing work by the piano, and we should do. So we did have a singing picture because we always had to perform at parties when we were growing up, and then we had got the guitars in the 60s, and we had to perform for these poor guests who came and had to listen to us. So here, this is a classic. This is singing for the Christmas guests, and it's a portrait of my grandmother who they thought had TB and was going to die, and that's why they had a portrait painted. It turned out to be a misdiagnosis. So that's why we're all here. Anyway, I didn't answer your question.
No, you did. Yeah, I was just sort of curious how she sort of had the veto power at then, but then I wondered if she would want to have a lot of voice in the setup of things or not. It sounds like she really let you take.
My sister had more ideas because it was really about our childhoods more than about, it was about my mother, but as we saw her as children.
Yeah.
And growing up as teenagers, it was the larger than life figure that we saw and remembered, and recreating that. And so my sister and I would talk and exchange ideas via email and stuff. So, are there anything else?
I love what you said about that you're always telling your students, photograph your own life and your own families and everything, and that you eventually came around to actually follow your own advice.
And I had never done that. I've never done a personal thing, but anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, I think it's a really interesting thing for us all to sort of think about. Is there some advice that we're telling everybody else, but that we haven't actually bothered to paint it onto ourselves?
That's right.
I'm sure there is.
Well, thank you all very much.